I'm delighted to welcome you to the first video of the Women's Corner. So this is going to be all about the menstrual cycle, hormones, what affects us, and all the ins and outs of being a woman and how it affects our nutrition and our lifestyle and whatnot. So I'm going to talk you through the first one, which is going to be the menstrual cycle and hormonal changes within the menstrual cycle. So obviously, as women, as menstruating women, we are aware of our period, what that is, but oftentimes we don't actually know what goes on over the cycle, what happens with our hormones and how it affects us. So I'm just going to give you a basic overview to start with of the menstrual cycle and hormonal changes that occur. So firstly, the menstrual cycle, what actually is it? Oftentimes people aren't actually aware what it is. They may have a fair idea, but especially young girls, you learn it in school, but it doesn't always stick with us. And at the time, we're not really that interested sometimes because we don't really understand how it's going to affect us later on in life. So yeah, let's get stuck in. So the menstrual cycle is the monthly hormonal cycle to prepare for pregnancy. Your menstrual cycle is counted from the first day of your period up to the first day of your next period. So your hormones level change throughout this whole time. So throughout the whole cycle, your hormones are going up and down, and it's causing fluctuations with your mood, weight, everything. So the typical cycle is 28 days, but can vary from 24 to 32. So my cycle is 28, so everyone's different. Some people's are shorter, some people's are longer. So day 1 to 5 is menstruation, so the first day of bleeding, and finishes at the beginning of ovulation. So the first day of your bleeding is your menstruation phase, and that finishes at the beginning of ovulation, like I said. So day 6 to 14 then roughly is your follicular, I always have trouble saying this word, follicular phase. Follicles in the ovary mature and estrogen levels rise. They begin to rise slightly at the start of this phase. So they're not at their peak, they just begin to rise at the beginning. Ovulation then is the middle of your cycle when the egg is released and you can get pregnant. So that's when you're most fertile. The luteal phase then starts at the beginning of ovulation and is the second half of your cycle. Ends at the end of your cycle or day 1 of menstruation again. So that's when it starts to continue and to go back around again. So I've just done up a little graph to show you how your hormones are throughout all of those phases. So just to run through quickly, the menstrual part of the follicular phase, 1 to 5, estrogen and progesterone are low. The lining of the uterus, called the endometrium, is shed, causing the bleeding. So that's your period. Follicular, I just don't think I'll ever be able to say that word. Follicular, 6 to 14, day 6 to 14, so estrogen and progesterone are on the rise. So at the beginning of that phase, they start rising. They're not at their peak, they're just rising. Ovulatory, 15 to 17, estrogen peaks, testosterone and progesterone rise. Luteal then, 18 to 28, so this is the last stage before it continues. Estrogen and progesterone levels are high. If the egg isn't fertilized, hormone levels decrease and the menstrual cycle starts again. Obviously, if you get pregnant, the whole menstrual cycle doesn't go back to square one. It is pregnancy, which is a totally different kettle of fish. Hormones then, what are they and how do they affect us? So right, we are aware of the differences in hormones throughout the cycles, or throughout the phases. If you go back here, you will see estrogen and progesterone are low at the beginning and they're high at the end. In the middle then, they're on the rise. They do drop slightly, but they peak again. Okay, so what is a hormone then? A hormone is a chemical that is made by specialist cells, usually within an endocrine gland. It is a chemical messenger, basically. So it's released into the bloodstream to send a message to another part of the body. The two main female sex hormones are estrogen and progesterone. Although testosterone is considered a male hormone, females need it too. So we have it in a smaller amount than men. So not many, well, a good few women don't actually realize that we have testosterone, but we do. Estrogen, so we're going to run through estrogen. So estrogen is the main hormone controlling the follicular phase. It rises steadily during the follicular phase and has a dramatic surge before ovulation. Responsible for water retention. The more estrogen we have, the more water we will retain. Weight fluctuations throughout the cycle. So estrogen is that lovely hormone that is responsible for the scales jumping up and down like a mad thing. So water retention, well, there are numerous reasons for water retention, but throughout our cycle, estrogen is responsible for a lot of it. So it then plummets before the luteal phase begins and gradually increases towards the end of that phase before it drops to its lowest at the end of the luteal phase. So as I said, it's always up and down throughout the cycle. Estrogen helps regulate leptin, which helps the brain response to hunger cravings and weight regulating hormones. A drop may increase hunger. This is what causes our premenstrual cravings. So estrogen is very much responsible for water weight, like we discussed, and our hunger and cravings as well. So it's very controlling. Estrogen is responsible for body fat levels also and contributes to women primarily holding body fat in their lower half. So that's why we tend to have bigger legs. Yeah, and also cellulite. So people aren't aware of estrogen causing cellulite either. So a lot of women will do their utmost best to get rid of the cellulite, but lo and behold, because you're a woman, because you have a hormone called estrogen, it's very difficult. And sometimes we never get rid of it. So it's very part of the normal body, human body. So not to get too worked up about it is the main thing. So like I just said, it thickens the connective tissues in the skin and the fat matrix. So that is aka cellulite in the lower body usually. So excess body fat pushes through the connective tissue, e.g. in the glutes, causing a lumpy look on skin. It's normal. So when I say excess body fat there, you might automatically think, oh, is it because my bum is fat? But we're going to have excess body fat on our bums and our tummy because we are women. Excess body fat doesn't mean fat, like you are fat. It just means that we have a very normal organ on our bodies, which is fat. So amounts of cellulite depend on genetics and overall body fat. So yeah, like I said, genetics is a huge role to play. Like some women don't ever get rid of it, and then some women have more of it because they've higher body fat. But realistically, you would want to be an extremely low body fat not to have it. So ladies, do not worry about it. It is a very normal part of life, and I spent years being really paranoid about it on my thighs, and I wouldn't wear shorts, and no matter how much weight I lost, I still had it. So it was it's rough because like you put in so much work and you still have it, but I think accepting it is key, and that sounds really cliche, but it's very true. So no creams and oils will work. So you see the cellulite banisher or cellulite disappearing cream, but like they don't work, so don't buy them. Progesterone then is the second female primary hormone responsible for the luteal phase. It's released after ovulation and increases, reaching its peak halfway through the luteal phase before decreasing again at the start of menstruation. When progesterone is high, it causes an increase in energy expenditure as body temperature increases, thus creating a higher BMR, so calories burnt at rest. So you may or may not have heard that there are certain times in your cycle where you can eat more. That's because your BMR has increased. Now that is true, but the thing is, during that phase, we tend to eat more because our cravings are high. But anyway, therefore you burn more calories every day during the luteal phase at rest. This can increase. This can be an increase of 2.5 to 10%. So, when you break it down, you can actually, if let's say you're in a weight loss phase and you're on a certain number of calories, you can actually increase the calories by, like it says here, 100 to 300 more. But the thing is, we will tend to eat more around that period of time. So naturally we'll eat more. So there is no point increasing them really. But it's very person specific. So yeah, that's the luteal phase and progesterone. So testosterone then the primary male sex hormone, but we have some of it too. So females also have testosterone, measured between 1/15th or 1/30th of males' levels. So obviously a lot lower than males. It's produced in the ovaries, divided into two categories. You don't need to know this: anabolic, tissue building, and two, androgenic, masculizing. So anabolic has effects on protein synthesis. This is the process where the body uses protein to build muscle. That's why men find it easier to build muscle, because they have more testosterone. Androgen affects increases in body hair, deepened voice, oily skin, acne, and hair. Testosterone then has a huge role in skeletal strength and muscle mass. That is why men are stronger generally than women and find it easier to build muscle, which just sucks. Okay, so menstruation and PMS. When menstruation begins, PMS symptoms tend to decrease. So you'll notice pre-period you have a lot more symptoms than during your period. In terms of like your mood might be really crap, and then you start bleeding and it kind of lessens. So it's just something to be aware of. Although cramping in the abdomen, lower back, and upper thighs can actually increase, the symptoms of like mood swings and cravings can decrease. So taking care of your emotional health is also important during this time. For the majority of us, our monthly visitor makes us feel pretty crap, and when we don't feel good, we often turn to comfort food. So generally, it is normal to feel a little less at the races. When it takes over your life and when it has a hold on your goals, then you need to do something about it then. It's not normal to, let it take over completely. So that's something to be mindful of, because we've very much adapted to living with it. Because we get told like, get on with it, you're a woman. So yeah, this is when we transition to the time of month and your body feels like it's returning to normal. So like I discussed, your symptoms can ease during menstruation. Not all of them, but some of them. Body temperature reduces, water retention starts to pass, energy begins to return, performance increases, fatigue reduces, and insulin sensitivity starts to increase again. Good news for your carb lovers. As the follicular approaches again, exercise intensity will naturally tend to increase. So we'll tend to, exercise with more intensity. Okay, so the follicular phase, this phase is when you turn into superwoman. Not literally, but you might feel like superwoman, which is great. Estrogen's good time to be in a deficit for fat loss. Yeah, so it's a good time to be in a deficit for fat loss because we obviously have more drive to work out. Your hunger hormones are also regulated. So leptin is regulated. Dopamine and serotonin, so the feel-good hormones, should be more balanced at this stage of the cycle, so you won't have as much of that low mood than your previous phase during menstruation. So increasing insulin sensitivity improves digestion, meaning you may not be as bloated after meals. So you have more tolerance to carbs and you can break down carbs more than usual, or more effectively than usual. So positive rebuilding and repairing muscles after exercise, so recovery is improved. Perhaps try hit your PBs in the gym. Okay, so ovulation then, your testosterone and estrogen are peaking, maximizing your potential. So this is when you really feel like superwoman. Try exercise such as high intensity interval workouts or hit PBs. So this is when your performance should be at its highest. I think it's not really ideal to focus too much on what phase am I at now, will I be able to do that particular exercise, because your mind can't take over then and be like, oh no, I'm really weak because I'm on my period or whatever. So just go off how you feel, because it is very different for every woman. So many women also experience increased energy and libido, plus feeling motivated. So it should be the time where you're like, I'm going to try that, or that sounds like a really good idea. I'm really excited about that. I'm going to clean out this wardrobe. I'm going to make this new project or whatever. So yeah, superwoman time. If fat loss is the goal, it's a good time to set some goals because you feel motivated and up for it and like you can achieve anything. Pain around ovulation also though. A lot of women report to have cramping sensations like you do get on your period, and that is obviously ovulation taking place. You can also have some water retention and bloating, so just to be mindful that the scales may be a little bit up and down during ovulation too. So basically the scales will be up and down all throughout the cycle because of the hormones, up and down. So, moving on then to the luteal phase. So this is the last phase before it starts again. Experience premenstrual syndrome during these 2 weeks. This can include changes in mood, fatigue, and increased water retention and constipation, so digestive issues. Lots of studies show that decreased performance during this phase as well, so you won't be as inclined to hit those PBs. During this phase, it's a good idea to opt for lower intensity exercise. You may not be feeling up to it, so take it easy if you don't feel up to it, basically. Craving will be higher during this phase due to low estrogen, especially for higher calorie foods. So we'll be crying out for pizza